I hope you're in a place where you might be able to see the screen. If not, feel free at this moment to move around a little bit. Thought I'd do something a little creative with this text. This is one of my favorite texts. It has so much in it. So we're going to be a little serious and a little playful today. I hope you'll go along with me. Much has been said about this text over the years. It is, I think, one of the most compelling stories in the Bible, in large part because it is a dramatist's dream. It has all the elements of a really great drama. Moses, who ends up being the chief actor in the story, was saved as a baby. Doesn't that make for good drama? He was saved from a certain death through fortuitous series of events and the bold moves of 5 women of deep compassion. We talked about those 5 women last week. Moses is now an adult in Pharaoh's court. And in a move of righteous anger, he kills an Egyptian taskmaster upon witnessing his brutal treatment of a Hebrew slave. And I hate to say it, but someone dying always is a great element for a good drama. What's going to come up on the screen now are going to be a series of modern and older pictures. I went through my files. Joe, would you mind turning up this set of lights? I don't know if that'll help any at all, but we'll see if we can get a little bit better. Our beautiful skylight works against me sometimes. So, Moses, now an adult, kills one of the taskmasters because he is treating a slave, a Hebrew slave, quite brutally. So now, Moses, bereft of his princely privileges and on the run from the law, drama, happens upon a most uncommon sight in a most common place. A bush. One of thousands he'd seen or passed by in his lifetime. I lived in New Mexico, and I have seen brush fires, but I've never seen a single bush aflame without being consumed. As a matter of fact, I've told you all before, as a kid, we would gather tumbleweeds in our alleyway. We happen to have cement block alleyways, and we could do this, at least we thought we could back then. And when everybody in the neighborhood put their tumbleweeds in the alley, someone on one end would light it, and it would rush through that cinder block alley all the way to the end, and we'd be done with those tumbleweeds in a matter of minutes. But not this brush, not this bush. It blazed and blazed and blazed and was not consumed. This surely is a most dramatic text. It is here on this bush that I want you to focus your eyes and your hearts. This bush of Moses, the one that would both thrill him and challenge him, the one that would change his life forever. I want to focus on 3 facets of this story that I believe God calls us to recognize and live into in our day, in our own calling. We're called to seek out that which is holy, divine, and sacred, blessed in that which is all too often seen as common, plain, ordinary, familiar, and even overlooked. I believe God is calling us, all of us, in fact, demanding of us, to see holy places, holy faces, and holy graces. Say that with me. Holy places, holy faces, and holy graces. Let's talk a little bit about holy places. Now, I think any one of us, when asked, where do you find the holy in life, would probably come up with lots of images, lots of specific places. I don't want to think your thoughts. You're your own individual, and I'm guessing you probably have more of a diversity of opinion than I might give most people credit. But my experience is that there are certain things and places that people find the holy in very, very easily. A lot of folks find the holy quite easily in spaces that have been built for that. In all kinds of different traditions, sanctuaries and temples and mosques. Good grief, that's why we designed them that way. Now, certainly there are some newer ones that may be a little bit more modern that we think, I don't think I can find apathy in there, much less holiness. But a lot of places are designed to inspire and elicit from us feelings of holiness, of awe, of reverence. I'd like to think Franklin Circle is one of those places. But how many of you all know this place? What is it? At Camp Christian. It's the Vesper spot at Camp Christian. Those of us who have been there know that even though it doesn't have all the beams and the gilded features of a sanctuary or temple, it is nonetheless holy, holy, holy. Amazing things happen here. Lives are transformed. You don't see it, but on the other side of this altar of rocks, which looks quite unseemly, but actually is extraordinarily beautiful, are just wood boards where we sit to watch Vespers or be a part of Vespers. Well, one of the Vesper services from the Advanced Conference Week, we were actually looking at justice, and I had talked about sometimes, like in the story of Job, an injustice happens so that, or in light of us being able to rise to the occasion and show our compassion. And what the Vesper planners did was they went through and they completely tore up, not in a permanent sort of way, but they lifted all the boards, they were laying against trees, they were all around. It just so happened that that night was a thunderstorm, and we weren't even sure that we could do Vespers out by the Vesper spot. I cannot tell you, those were just boards. But we walked in and we were horrified. You could just feel a shock. We knew that they had been moved on purpose. We knew that Vesper planners had done this. But that holy spot looked horrible. People cried. It was amazing. And it was a very, very simple change to a holy spot. There are some places that are holy because we make them holy. Because it's so easy because of what happens there for us to be transformed. And then there's some places like nature. And this, I think, is just the most common, where people say, I can find God at the mountaintop. I can find God, on the roadside where there's, no human sign of life or nothing has been moved or changed. This is the shore of Long Island. I was there a few years ago. The amazing beauty and simplicity seems to allow God to be found in the purest and most accessible way. There are even some structures made by human hand that elicit not just the consciousness of God, but an outright awe and breathless wonder. The Golden Gate Bridge is one of those that just takes my breath away. But I don't think the scripture text today is calling us to see the holy in those kinds of obvious places. I think the scripture text is calling us to see the holy in places that we aren't looking. In fact, expect the exact opposite. Now, many of you know that I have spent the last few years of my life on a quest to help folks understand that while the holy can be found in nature, Allah, how great thou art, you know it. From lofty mountain grandeur, I hear the brook and feel the gentle breeze, then sings my soul. The holy certainly can be found in nature, but I have been on a mission to help people understand the holy is not only found in nature. I have found in my own spiritual experience, which is to say, it's not just a head-only approach, but a deep, heartfelt awareness that God is just as present in the midst of the nitty-gritty urban core, the completely human-crafted part of life, where you can't see a stinking bit of nature. God is there also. I believe that nothing shows God's sacredness than using the fragile, fickle, and often all too flawed human being to create spaces and places which evoke beauty, amazement, and possibility. Who, but the God of the universe, could have such disparate people packed too tightly into too small a piece of ground, whether it be Manhattan or Chicago, Toronto or Washington, D.C., or Cleveland, Ohio, where we live and work and play and worship and do it in as much harmony as we actually do? How could we human beings, in the first place, create such intricate works of art, from skyscrapers that tower above us, to the patterns of metal or concrete or wood that lay underneath our feet? I think that this dramatic scripture, where Moses is confronted by God in just one more bush in that desert that he was all too familiar with, is a chance for us to look for the holy in the most common places in our lives, the most familiar, the most mundane places of life. If we truly were seeking the holy where God might be found, we would be taking off our shoes all the time. The holy and the familiar.